In this lesson, you will learn how to monitor and control network applications that may use standard or non-standard protocols and ports, beyond simply blocking or allowing a protocol, port number, or IP address. In this lesson, you will explore the following topics: application control basics, application control operation modes, logging and monitoring application control events, best practices, and troubleshooting. After completing this section, you should be able to understand application control, detect types of applications, understand the FortiGuard Application Control Services database, use application control signatures. By demonstrating competence in application control basics, you will be able to understand how application control works on FortiGate. Application control detects applications, often applications that consume a lot of bandwidth, and allows you to take appropriate actions related to application traffic, such as monitoring, blocking, or applying traffic shaping. Application control identifies applications such as Google Talk by matching known patterns to the application's transmission patterns. Therefore, an application can be accurately identified only if its transmission pattern is unique. However, not every application behaves in a unique way. Many applications reuse pre-existing standard protocols and communication methods. For example, many video games, such as World of Warcraft, use the BitTorrent protocol to distribute game patches. Application control can be configured in proxy-based and flow-based virtual domains. However, because application control uses the IPS engine, which uses flow-based inspection, inspection is always flow-based. By comparison, when applying web filtering and antivirus through an HTTP proxy, the proxy first parses HTTP and removes the protocol, and then scans only the payload inside. Why does FortiGate use a flow-based scan for application control? Unlike other forms of security profiles such as web filtering or antivirus, application control is not applied by a proxy. It uses an IPS engine to analyze network traffic and detect application traffic, even if the application is using standard or non-standard protocols and ports. It doesn't operate using built-in protocol states. It matches patterns in the entire byte stream of the packet and then looks for patterns. When HTTP and other protocols were designed, they were designed to be easy to trace. Because of that, administrators could easily give access to single servers behind NAT devices, such as routers and, later, firewalls. But when P2P applications were designed, they had to be able to work without assistance or cooperation from network administrators. In order to achieve this, the designers made P2P applications able to bypass firewalls and incredibly hard to detect. Port randomization, pinholes, and changing encryption patterns are some of the techniques that P2P protocols use. These techniques make P2P applications difficult to block using a firewall policy, and also make them difficult to detect by proxy-based inspection. Flow-based inspection using the IPS engine can analyze packets for pattern matching and then look for patterns to detect P2P applications. This slide shows a traditional client-server architecture. There may be many clients of popular sites, but often, such as with an Office file server, it's just one client and one server. Traditional downloads use a defined protocol over a standard port number. Whether it's from a web or FTP site, the download is from a single IP address to a single IP address. So blocking this kind of traffic is easy. You only need one firewall policy. But it's more difficult for peer-to-peer downloads. Why? P2P downloads divide each file among multiple, theoretically unlimited peers. Each peer delivers part of the file. While having many clients is a disadvantage in client-server architectures, it is an advantage for P2P architecture because as the number of peers increases to n, the file is delivered n times faster. Because popularity increases the speed of delivery, unlike traditional client-server architecture where popularity could effectively cause a denial of service attack on the server, some software, such as BitTorrent distributions of Linux and games distributing new patches, leverage this advantage. Even if each client has little bandwidth, together they can offer more bandwidth for the download than many powerful servers. Conversely, in order to download the file, the requesting peer can consume much more bandwidth per second than it would from only a single server. Even if there is only one peer in your network, it can consume unusually large amounts of bandwidth. As the protocols are usually evasive, and there will be many sessions to many peers, they are difficult to completely block. Before you try to control applications, it's important to understand the signatures used by application control. How does application control detect the newest applications and changes to application protocols? Application control is now a free FortiGuard service, and the database for application control signatures is separate from the IPS database. You can configure your FortiGate to automatically update its application control signature database on the FortiGuard page. The application control signature database information is also displayed on the FortiGuard page. You can also enable push updates so that FortiGate receives updates as soon as they are available from the FortiGuard server. You can view the latest version of the application control database on the FortiGuard website, http://www.fortiguard.com, or by clicking an individual application signature in the application control profile. The application control database provides details about application control signatures based on category, popularity, and risk, to name a few. When building an application control signature, the FortiGuard security research team evaluates the application and assigns a risk level. The assigned risk level is based on the type of security risk. The rating is Fortinet specific and not related to the Common Vulnerability Scoring System, CVSS, or other external systems. If you aren't aware of the specific application, this information can help you decide if it would be wise to block an application or not. On the FortiGuard website, you can read details about each signature's related application. Let's look at an example. On this slide, you can see an example article for UltraSurf_9.6+. UltraSurf_9.6+ is a web proxy, so it belongs in the proxy category. It is a good practice to create test policies that you can use to observe policy behavior. If there are new applications that you need to control and the latest update doesn't include definitions for them, you can go to the FortiGuard website and submit a request to have the new applications added. You can also submit a request to reevaluate an application category if you believe an application should belong to a different category. Many web applications offer functionality that can be embedded in third-party websites or applications. For example, you can embed a Facebook like button at the end of an article or reference a YouTube video on an educational website. FortiOS gives administrators all the tools they need to inspect sub-application traffic. The FortiGuard application control signature database is organized in a hierarchical structure. This gives you the ability to inspect the traffic with more granularity. You can block Facebook apps while allowing users to collaborate using Facebook chat. Good job! You now understand basic application control functionality. Next, you'll learn about application control configuration. After completing this section, you should be able to configure application control in profile mode, configure application control in Next Generation Firewall (NGFW) Policy mode, use the application control traffic shaping policy. By demonstrating competence in configuring the application control operation modes that are available on FortiOS, you will be able to use application control effectively in both profile mode and in NGFW policy mode. When FortiGate or a VDOM is operating in flow-based NGFW mode set to profile-based inspection mode or proxy-based inspection mode, to configure application control, administrators must create an application control profile and apply that profile to a firewall policy. It is important to note that the application control profile uses flow-based scanning techniques, regardless of which inspection mode is used on the VDOM or FortiGate. The application control profile consists of 3 different types of filters. Categories groups applications based on similarity. For example, all applications that are capable of providing remote access are grouped in the remote access category. You can view the signatures of all the applications in a category or apply an action to a category as a whole. Application overrides provides the flexibility to control specific signatures and applications. Filter overrides useful when a predefined category does not meet your requirements and you want to block all applications based on criteria that is not available in categories. You can configure the categorization of applications based on behavior, popularity, protocol, risk, vendor, or the technology used by the applications, and take action based on that. The application control profile is configured on the application control page. You can configure actions based on categories, application overrides, and filter overrides. You can also view the list of application control signatures by clicking View Application Signatures. At the top of the application control profile page, you will see a summary of how many cloud applications require deep inspection. Cloud applications that use SSL encryption cannot be scanned without a deep inspection profile. FortiGate will need to decrypt the traffic in order to perform inspection and control application traffic. The unknown application setting matches traffic that can't be matched to any application control signature and identifies the traffic as unknown application in the logs. Factors that contribute to traffic being identified as unknown application include how many rare applications your users are using, which IPS database version you are using. Identifying traffic as unknown can cause frequent log entries. Frequent log entries decrease performance. The number listed to the right of the cloud symbol indicates the number of cloud applications within a specified category. If you need to enable Allow and Log DNS traffic, you should enable it only for short periods, such as during an investigation. Depending on the application and how often it queries DNS servers, enabling this setting can use significant system resources. QUIC is a protocol from Google. Instead of using the standard TCP connections for web access, it uses UDP, which is not scanned by the web filtering. Allowing QUIC instructs FortiGate to inspect Google Chrome packets for a QUIC header and generate logs as a QUIC message. Blocking QUIC forces Google Chrome to use HTTP 2 TLS 1.2 and FortiGate to log the QUIC as blocked. The default action for QUIC is block. The replacement messages for HTTP-based application setting allows you to replace blocked content with an explanation for the user's benefit. However, for non-HTTP HTTPS applications, you can only drop the packets or reset the TCP connection. After you've configured the application control profile, select the profile in the firewall policy. Like any other security profile, the settings you configure in the application control profile are not applied globally. FortiGate applies the application control profile settings to only allow traffic governed by the firewall policy in which you've selected the application control profile. This allows granular control. The IPS engine examines the traffic stream for a signature match. Then FortiGate scans packets for matches in this order for the application control profile. 1. Application overrides. If you have configured any application overrides, the application control profile considers those first. It looks for a matching override starting at the top of the list, like firewall policies. 2. Filter overrides. If no matching application override exists, then the application control profile applies the action based on the configured filter overrides. 3. Categories. Finally, the application control profile applies the action that you've configured for applications in your selected categories. It is also worth mentioning that multiple overrides for the same signature cannot be created. In the example profile shown on this slide, the application control profile blocks the game and video audio categories. For applications in these categories, FortiGate responds with application control's HTTP block message. It is slightly different from web filtering's HTTP block message. All other categories are set to monitor, except unknown applications, and are allowed to pass traffic. In the application override section, you can see that some exceptions are specified. Instead of being set to block, Battle.net game and Dailymotion video audio are set to monitor, Because application overrides are applied first in the scan, these two applications will be allowed and will generate logs. Next, the scan will check for filter overrides, because a filter override is configured to block applications that use excessive bandwidth. It will block all applications using excessive bandwidth, regardless of categories that allow these exceptions. Here is an example of how several security profile features could work together, overlap, or work as substitutes on the same traffic. After the application control profile scan is done, FortiGate begins other scans, such as web filtering. The web filtering scan could block battle.net and Dailymotion, but it would use its own block message. Also, web filtering doesn't check the list of application control overrides, so even if an application control override allows an application, web filtering could still block it. Similarly, static URL filtering has its own exempt action, which bypasses all subsequent security checks. However, application control occurs before web filtering, so that web filtering exemption cannot bypass application control. For each filter in the application control profile, you must indicate an action, what FortiGate does when traffic matches. Actions include the following: allow, passes the traffic and does not generate a log. Monitor, passes the traffic but also generates a log message. Block, drops the detected traffic and generates a log message. Quarantine, blocks the traffic from an attacker IP until the expiration time is reached. It also generates a log message. The View Signature setting allows you to view signatures from a particular category only and is not a configurable action. The View Cloud Signature setting allows you to view application signatures for cloud applications from a particular category. Which is the correct action to choose? If you're not sure which action to choose, Monitor can be useful initially while you study your network. Later, after you've studied your network traffic, you can fine-tune your filter selection by choosing the most appropriate action. The action you choose also depends on the application. If an application requires feedback to prevent instability or other unwanted behavior, then you might choose Quarantine instead of Block. Otherwise, the most efficient use of FortiGate resources is to block. After an application control profile is configured, it must be applied to a firewall policy. This will instruct FortiGate to start scanning application traffic that is subject to the firewall policy. For HTTP-based applications, application control can provide feedback to the user about why their application was blocked. This is called a block page, and it is similar to the one you can configure for URLs that you block using FortiGuard web filtering. It is also worth mentioning that if deep inspection is enabled in the firewall policy, all HTTPS-based applications will provide this block page. The block page contains the following information: signature that's detected the application, in this case, BitTorrent. Signatures category, P2P. URL that was specifically blocked, in this case, the index page of bittorrent.com, since a web page can be assembled from multiple URLs. Client source IP, 10.0.1.10. Server's destination IP. Username, if authentication is enabled. UUID of the policy governing the traffic. FortiGate's hostname. The last two items in this list can help you identify which FortiGate blocked the page, even if you have a large network with many FortiGate devices securing different segments. When FortiGate is operating in NGFW policy-based mode, administrators can apply application control to a firewall policy directly, instead of having to create an application control profile first and then apply that to a firewall policy. Eliminating the need to use an application control profile makes it easier for the administrator to select the applications or application categories they want to allow or deny in the firewall policy. It is important to note that all firewall policies in an NGFW policy-based mode, VDOM, or FortiGate must use the same SSL/SSH inspection profile. NGFW policy-based mode also requires the use of central SNAT instead of NAT settings applied within the firewall policy.
You can select one or more applications, application groups, and application categories on a firewall policy in the Application section. After you click the plus icon for an application, FortiOS will open a pop-up window that you can use to search and select one or more application signatures, application groups, or application categories. Based on the applications, groups, and application categories applied to the policy, FortiOS will apply the firewall action to the application traffic. You can configure the URL category within the same firewall policy. However, adding a URL filter will cause application control to scan applications in only the browser-based technology category. For example, Facebook Messenger on the Facebook website. You can also configure the group with multiple applications and application categories. This will allow the administrator to mix multiple applications and categories. In addition to applying a URL category filter, you can also apply antivirus, DNS filter, and IPS security profiles to application traffic that is allowed to pass through.
FortiOS uses a three-step process to perform NGFW policy-based application filtering. Here's a brief overview of what happens at each step. In Step 1, FortiOS will allow all traffic while forwarding packets to IPS engine for inspection and identification of the traffic. At the same time, FortiOS will create an entry in the session table for the traffic to pass, and it adds a may_dirty flag to it. In Step 2, as soon as the IPS engine identifies the application, it updates the session entry with the following information: dirty flag, valid_app flag, and an application ID. In Step 3, the FortiOS kernel performs a firewall policy lookup again to see if the identified application ID is listed in any of the existing firewall policies. This time, the kernel uses both Layer 4 and Layer 7 information for policy matching. After the criteria matches a firewall policy rule, the FortiOS kernel applies the action configured on the firewall policy to the application traffic.
Configuring application control in NGFW policy-based mode is simple. You can create a new firewall policy or edit an existing firewall policy. In the Application section, select the applications, categories, or groups that you want to allow or deny, and change the firewall policy action accordingly. On applications that you selected to allow, you can further enhance network security by enabling AV scanning, DNS filtering, and IPS control. You can also enable the logging of security events or all sessions to ensure that all application control events are logged. You must have a matching central SNAT policy in NGFW policy-based mode to be able to pass traffic. NAT is applied on the traffic based on criteria defined in the central SNAT policy. It is extremely important to arrange firewall policies so that the more specific policies are located at the top to ensure proper use of application control. Note: the SSH/SSL inspection section is grayed out since it is selected at a VDOM level when NGFW policy-based mode is enabled.
NGFW policy matching works using top-to-bottom approach. You must have a specific policy above a more broad open policy. For example, if you would like to block Facebook but allow the social.media category, you must place the policy blocking Facebook traffic above the policy allowing the social.media category. If an application is necessary but you need to prevent it from impacting bandwidth, then instead of blocking it entirely, you can apply a rate limit to the application. For example, you can rate limit applications used for storage or backup, leaving enough bandwidth for more sensitive streaming applications such as video conferencing. Applying traffic shaping to applications is very useful when you're trying to limit traffic that uses the same TCP or UDP port numbers as mission-critical applications. Some high-traffic websites, such as YouTube, can be throttled in this way. Examine the details of how throttling works. Not all URL requests to www.youtube.com are for video. Your browser makes several HTTPS requests for the web page itself, images, scripts and style sheets, video. All of these items have separate URLs. If you analyze a site like YouTube, the web pages themselves don't use much bandwidth. It is the video content that uses the most bandwidth. But since all content is transported using the same protocol, HTTPS, and the URLs contain dynamically generated alphanumeric strings, traditional firewall policies can't block or throttle the traffic by port number or protocol because they are the same. Using application control, you can rate limit only videos. Doing this prevents users from saturating your network bandwidth while still allowing them to access the other content on the site, such as for comments or sharing links. You can limit the bandwidth of an application category or specific application by configuring a traffic shaping policy. You can also apply traffic shaping to FortiGuard web filter categories. You must ensure that the matching criteria aligns with the firewall policy or policies to which you want to apply shaping. It does not have to match outright. For example, if the source in the firewall policy is set to all 0.0.0.0/0.0.0.0, the source in the traffic shaping policy can be set to any source that is included in all. For example, local_subnet 10.0.1.0/24. If the traffic shaping policy is not visible in the GUI, you can enable it on the feature visibility page. Note that the outgoing interface is usually the egress interface, WAN. The shared shaper setting is applied to ingress to egress traffic, which is useful for restricting bandwidth for uploading. The reverse shaper setting is also a shared shaper, but it is applied to traffic in the reverse direction, egress to ingress traffic. This is useful for restricting bandwidth for downloading or streaming because it limits the bandwidth from the external interface to the internal interface. There are two types of shapers that can be configured from the traffic shaping policy page, and you can apply them in the traffic shaping policy. Shared shaper applies a total bandwidth to all traffic using that shaper. The scope can be per policy or for all policies referencing that shaper. Per IP shaper allows you to apply traffic shaping to all source IP addresses in the security policy, and bandwidth is equally divided among the group. Good job! You now understand application control operation modes. Next, you'll learn about logging and monitoring application control events. After completing this section, you should be able to enable application control logging events, monitor application control events, use FortiView to see a detailed view of application control logs. By demonstrating competence in application control configuration, including reviewing application control logs, you will be able to effectively use and monitor application control events. Regardless of which operation mode application control is configured in, logging must be enabled on the firewall policy. When you enable the logging of security events or all session on a firewall policy, application control events will also be logged. You must apply application control to the firewall policy to enable application control event logging. When the deny action is selected on a firewall policy, the log violations option must be enabled to generate application control events for blocked traffic. All application control events are logged on the application control pane on the log and report page. You can view details about individual logs by clicking on the log entry. In the example shown on this slide, access to Dailymotion is blocked using the default application control profile. This information is available in the log details section, as well as information about the log's source, destination, application, and action. Note that this log message was generated by application control using a profile-based configuration. In an NGFW policy-based configuration, you will not find information such as application sensor name, because it does not apply. The remainder of the information and structure of the log message is the same for each log, regardless of which inspection mode FortiGate is operating in. You can also view the details on the Forward Traffic Logs pane. This pane is where firewall policies record activity. You will also find a summary of the traffic to which FortiGate applied application control. Again, this is because application control is applied by a firewall policy. To find out which policy applied application control, you can either review the policy ID or the policy UUID fields of the log message. On the FortiView menu, the Applications page provides details about each application, such as the application name, category, and bandwidth. You can drill down further to see more granular details by double-clicking an individual log entry. The detailed view provides information about the source, destination, policies, or sessions for the selected application. Good job! You now understand application control logging and monitoring. Next, you'll learn about application control best practices and troubleshooting. After completing this section, you should be able to recognize best practices for application control configuration, understand how to troubleshoot application control update issues. By demonstrating competence in application control best practices and troubleshooting, you will be able to configure and maintain an effective application control solution. This slide lists some best practices to keep in mind when implementing application control on FortiGate. Not all traffic requires an application control scan. Don't apply application control on internal-only traffic. To minimize resource use on FortiGate, be as specific as possible when creating firewall policies. This will not only reduce the resources use, it will also help you build a more secure firewall configuration. Create identical firewall policies for all redundant internet connections to ensure that the same inspection is performed on failover traffic. Select deep inspection instead of certificate-based inspection for the SSL/SSH inspection mode to ensure content inspection is performed on encryption protocols. FortiGate models that feature specialized chips such as network processors and content processors can offload and accelerate application signature matching for enhanced performance. You can use a FortiCloud account to save and view application control logs in FortiView on FortiGate devices that do not have a log disk. If you are experiencing issues with a FortiGuard application control update, start troubleshooting the issue with the most basic steps. Make sure that FortiGate has a stable connection to the Internet or FortiManager, if FortiGate is configured to receive updates from a FortiManager. If the Internet connection is stable, check DNS resolution on FortiGate. If FortiGate is installed behind a network firewall, make sure that port 443 is being correctly forwarded to FortiGate. You can check the FortiGuard website for the latest version of the application control database. If your locally installed database is out of date, try forcing FortiGate to check for the latest updates by running the execute update now command. Congratulations! You have completed this lesson. Now you'll review the objectives that you covered in this lesson. This lesson covered the following objectives: understand application control, detect types of applications, understand the FortiGuard Application Control Services database, use application control signatures, configure application control in profile mode, configure application control in NGFW policy mode, use the application control traffic shaping policy, enable application control logging events, monitor application control events, use FortiView to see a detailed view of application control logs, recognize best practices for application control configuration, understand how to troubleshoot application control update issues,